taking a step away from itself. It's pretending to be a form and having fun with it, see, and then giving it up without any karma accruing in the process. So they describe, like the Avatut, they describe a person like that as, oh, he feels like it's too much trouble to open and close the eyes. So he just sits there the way he is, eyes half open. He says, time to meditate, should I close my eyes? Why should I? You see, too much trouble to open and close the eyes, because I'm always in meditation. I'm always in the state of not two-ness. So Sloka 4 then has a lot to say. It wants you to merge everything into the heart. See? And so there I put on the board, mind free of sense objects. And then Sloka 5, mind merged in the heart. And that's where they have this beautiful mention of dhyanam and jnanam. The mind should be controlled to that extent in which it gets merged in the heart. This is jnana, realization. And this is dhyana, meditation. And all else is argumentation and verbiage. Too vexing. And they're about to get into how Brahman is beyond reasoning. So they're already setting up each sloka. He's setting up each sloka in advance of itself with the previous sloka to help you to lead in a gradated way, take these steps that are possible for the mind to take, and once taken, master them, so that you won't have to come up and down the stairs of birth and death anymore. Just inner ascension, we call that, or inward ascension. Find the truth, and the truth sets you free, and you remain in the truth. So that sloka then says the mind should be controlled to the extent in which it gets merged in the heart. This is jnanam, this is dhyanam. This is contemplation of the truth in meditation. So first you'd have to hear the truth, and that's called shravana, to hear. And then you have to roll it around in your mind, that's called manana, to contemplate it. And then nididhyasana is to realize it. Then satshakara, you bring it back full. And there's a fourth movement to that. Bring it back into life for all to see and appreciate, like an illumined soul would do. So all else is argumentation, verbiage. So I put that, summated that on the board there for you. Beautiful thing to remember about the two of those four yogas, jnanam and dhyanam. That there are people who maybe aren't attracted to God with form and to churches and devotions and various worship, pujas and things. And if they come into this lifetime and they feel lost, then those two things can bring them back to a state of realization again. Then Sloka 6, and that's where we ended last time I was here. Actually, we bridged into Sloka 7, but you can see my summation of it there. Atman and Swarupa is all of a sudden mentioned then. The supreme state is neither to be thought of as something external or pleasing, nor unworthy, to be thought of as something unpleasant to the mind, nor is that supreme state to be thought of as being the form of sense pleasure, but it is to be thought of as the essence of ever-manifested eternal supreme bliss itself. So we often say to those who object, or extreme non-dualists say, well, that sounds like attributes to me, bliss. But we say, no, it's not. It's the nature of the thing. Like, we could say the tree is green, but the green wasn't added on to the tree as an attribute. It was just green by nature. It was in its makeup. And that way, bliss and consciousness and so forth are innate in Brahman. They're not add-ons, they're not qualities, they're not attributes. They're innate, and bliss is being particularly pointed out and emphasized here. And that's why when you experience God, you experience bliss, and you don't question it. Otherwise, you'd question it. See? And so that sets up, that whole thing about questioning sets up the next sloka. 6 is a long sloka, but we took it apart last time with 2 charts. So you can look back on that class. But in Sloka 7, which is where we read a little bit of it my last visit here, about 2 months ago, remember it says, one should duly practice concentration on Om. First through the means of its letters, and then meditate on Om without regard to its letters. Finally, the realization of this latter form of meditation on Om, the idea of non-entity is attained as entity. So what was once an entity to you, through this process of meditating on Om, becomes a non-entity, and that non-entity becomes the reality. So it's like saying in the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And if you meditate upon the words from the station you're at, say secular wisdom, and then finally sacred wisdom, and Dharma and so forth, then those words will open up to you this vista of Jnanam and Dhyanam, of Atman merged in the heart, you see. And this will be the path of freedom and enlightenment to you. And there will be no doubt about it. And in that case, there needs to be no second coming. See, you've arrived, and that's it, and others need to arrive with you. Follow what you did. Follow what that great soul did. So that was a repeat of Sloka 7, and just to not spend a lot of time on this chart on my right, but at the same time remind the mind, because a lot of people might not have been tuning into the class last week in Hawaii, is that this 4 stages of the word, with these double waterfalls here falling into one pool, beautiful shot out of our Hawaiian islands, is there superimposed with these 4 phases of the word. So just a quick explanation of that is that when the word is one with God, there you have it, para, you see. That's where it's just all an indeterminate mass of pure conscious awareness. So later on, it comes down into a pashanti state, and it enters a plane of intelligence. Like Swami Vivekananda said, the first compound of consciousness is intelligence. So out of this pure state of Atman, if it wants to differentiate itself at all, even into the slightest degree, it'll do it through intelligence. And that's why I just chanted Nityo Nityanam Chaitanas Chaitananam. Chaitanas, the intelligence, Chaitananam, of the most intelligent beings. See? So in them you will find the closest thing to God in form that is possible. It's the intelligence of the most intelligent beings. So they're freshest out of Brahman. They're firstborn. And so we go to them, like we would go to these teachings and these rishis, to get our clarification. If our minds have become unclear or doubtful or unsure, uncertain, we would go to them with that. So that's the beauty of the firstborn. It's not just like, say, superior beings and inferior beings. It's more like these beings decided to stay closest to the source. Other beings ventured away, that's all. And if the other beings ventured away and then found themselves lost, they have to go back to the firstborn, the people or beings who are closest to Brahman, to get reinformed about their true nature. Sin is not a black mark on your soul. It's something that happens due to forgetfulness. And when you remember, the soul is, you see the soul has never become impure as you thought it did. That's why in the Avadhuta Gita and the Ashtavakra Samhita and other non-dual scriptures, they tell us that the 6-limbed yoga, cannot make the soul pure. Bowing at the Guru's feet cannot make the soul pure. Destroying the waves of the mind cannot make the soul pure, because the soul is always pure. So in that way, then, you return to your understanding of the innate perfection of your own self, and you can easily then merge it with Brahman, because they're There's no fiber sticking out of the thread, as Ramakrishna used to say. You try and pass the thread through a needle, and it won't go. Take a magnifying glass, check that end of that thread, and you see a little tiny fiber sticking out there that was keeping it from going through, and the thread would bend. And so you just moisten it, and twist it a little bit and pass it right through. So those little threads that are sticking out are our misunderstandings about the oneness of Brahman and Jiva. Innate oneness, that's called Advaita Vedanta. That's really the essence of Advaita Vedanta right there. Or, I and my Father are one, if you want to put it that way. Thousands of years before Jesus said that, it was Tattvamasi, that thou art. Sarvosmi, I am that. You see, all is Brahman. So this has been known by these knowers of Brahman who stay close to the source. And this is what they specialize in. This is why they take a separate body at all. It's just to be a, if you will, satellite station for souls who are trying to lift off of Earth and the bondage that they found there. So if the coming out of the word, if you come from a purely transcendental position that's pure, the first thing you'll see is some intelligence, and it's creating a ground for manifestation. When it finally manifests, that's where thought, concepts, sound, and meaning all emerge. You see, they've been floating in an indeterminate state here. They're in a state of potential. Then all of a sudden the word descends to the third phase of its manifestation, and all of these things are now possible. They need to be brought together. So haven't they been brought together here? There's the word bookmark. There's the sound of the word bookmark. There's the paper. There's the form. There's the concept, I should have a bookmark. And the thought, I have a bookmark. All of a sudden, all these things come together as an object. But the object hasn't reached its solid state yet. The 5 elements have to kick in. And this is all the word's natural manifestation in 4 stages. It's like 4 steps down and then 4 steps back up to its original state. And there are 4 states of consciousness: waking, dreaming, deep sleep, and turiya. And those epitomize the word. See? They explain the word to us in terms of our own consciousness. And this explains it in terms of philosophy and cosmology, how words are formed. Remember now, the goddess of the word is called Vakdevi, and all the alphabets in the world in existence are her languages. And she's helping all people understand things, objects, concepts, even such things as highfalutin philosophy and dharma, through words. And so the import of words is immense in this tradition, and in most traditions too. You wouldn't underestimate them. At the same time, you shouldn't forget that there's a higher implication to words than just daily talk, conventional talk, and of course lower things like gossip, fault-finding, hating, vilifying, finding fault with, and all of that goes on. That's really using words in an insulting way. But words at the level of secular knowledge, scientific knowledge and so forth, are also very important. Words at the level of social interactions with communications between people help matters, or should be able to help matters. But there's nothing like the real implication of the word that's in its second, third, and fourth stages. Those are the origins of all the things that are here. The names of objects, the names we've assigned to water, earth, fire, air, and earth in many different languages. Agni, Apoho, Kshiti, Vayu, these same words were thousands of years old for the 5 elements in a different language. So all of this has been fomenting, if you will, inside of one word that is continually sounding itself. See, Svachanda Tantra says here, no one sounds this word voluntarily, nor can anyone prevent it from sounding. In the heart of all, it sounds spontaneously. So we were just talking about the heart, how to merge the mind and the heart, right? So in the heart of all, that word is sounding spontaneously, and time isn't passing there. See, it's all one moment, one eternal moment, they describe that. Like the 6 doorways of yoga, or the system is based upon that kind of understanding. So a quick run through this just not only is a review for all of those watching in Hawaii today who saw this chart last week with its new colorized version, but also for all of us here that are going to segue us into slokas 7 and 8. And so since we took this apart partially last visit, we just only have to remember that he has 3, and there I've put sloka 7 on the board, 3 ways of meditating on Om. So try and inject this into your memory. There are 4 phases of the word, and there are 3 phases of meditating on it. 3 ways to meditate upon it. If you can know those 2 things about the word, then you're halfway back to understanding the implication of everything that comes out of the word. In other words, that's what we're saying here. All of this is the word made manifest. They even said that about the body of Jesus and so forth. It's just the word walking around on 2 legs in full realization of what the word means. And that word is eternal and ancient, at the same time simultaneously ancient and eternal, as is said there. The mother word is the essence of Brahman, as Akshara, the imperishable. The Tantras call her Paravak. The Vaidika scriptures designate her as Shabda Brahma. So whatever system you look at, they have a very close relationship with the word, whether it's Tantra, or the Agamas, or the Vedanta, Vaidika scriptures. They all have a very close association with the word, and they've realized from the get-go that the word has been the essence of everything. And so in order to prove that further to you, then they're going to want you to meditate on it in its 3 phases, through each of its letters first, as matras. That is the letter A, the letter U, and the letter Om. And then combine all those letters, and then go beyond the letters and the meaning to a transcendent state, and where the Om is actually sounding inside of your being and you're merging in it. Most beings, when they go to sleep, they'll hear the word and they'll forget about it. And when they wake up, they'll hear the word that was humming in their deep sleep state immediately go away, and they'll forget about it. So the word is behind everything, but it's not being remembered, it's not being experienced consciously. And part of the method or way in which you can experience it consciously is to keep it in mind. Don't forget to remember it. And we do that through Jnanam and Dhyanam. We do that through hearing the philosophy about the word, like this, 4 phases of the word, and then meditating on it. So he's talking about that here. See how he's setting up this sloka on the word. He hasn't mentioned the word once yet in the first 6 slokas. All of a sudden in the 7th sloka he says, you might jump to the chase here and say, for a person who has gotten rid of desires, who has freed the mind from desires, who has quit brooding on sense objects, who have then concentrated and merged the mind into the heart and realized that there's an Atman there, that the Atman is existing there, then they are most qualified to meditate on the word. In other words, the only practice left to them, the only foundation or station left for them to experience is the word. It's humming there, it's blissful, it's eternal, it's the gateway into Turiya, the fourth state of your consciousness. And the way in which they explain that so it becomes more personably graspable to you, that you can actually comprehend it, is through your waking, dreaming, and deep sleep states. Now, we have looked at that in terms of this several times, because probably the most recent exponent of these meditation in 3 ways, on the 3 mantras, you see, meditate in 3 ways through each of its letters. We know that's A-U-M. I mean, if you want to spell Om, O-M, you can. That's an abbreviation of it, but to be philosophically correct and specific, you're going to want to spell it A-U-M so that philosophically you can explain it. So you're going to want to know that when beings are in their waking state, they're in the A of the word. Basically, they're down here, right, in the Vaikari stage, called rudimentary, where everything's solid. The word has become solid. The word has become flesh. The word has become a combination of earth, air, fire, water, and ether. And so that's the Vaikari state. It's gross. Gross not meaning horrible, but although it can be that here. Solid, liquid, gaseous, and so forth. Fire, air, and earth. So this is where the waking state takes place. And if you want to connect this quickly back to slokas 2 and 3, where objects are being brooded upon, then what you're saying is that you're brooding upon the combination of the 5 elements. That's what you're doing, because all objects consist of 5 elements. And then you connect that into the rudimentary stage here, and you know that that's why everything seems solid or liquid. And your senses, tactile senses, are experiencing that. And people forgetting their dreaming, deep sleep, and original state, and forgetting how the word came out of causal and subtle levels into the gross level, get attached just to that level, and they live only in the waking state. So they're living only in the state of A. They're making A. No, sorry about that. So they're living only in the waking state. And that's how most people live. Their dreams aren't real to them anymore, and their deep sleep state isn't known to them. And of course their true nature beyond AUM, which is that Shvara, or the little one-eyed smile we call it, or that half moon lying on its back with a dot in the actual letter Om in Sanskrit, is Turiya. It means transcendent of waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. That's your true nature. What they've been mentioning here is Atman or Swarupa. That's your essence. Now sometimes you'll call this the 4 feet of Brahman. It's like they don't want you divorced from the word, because if you give them the teaching that the world is unreal, you're just talking about A, right? But if you give them the teaching that the world of earth plus heaven are also unreal, so you've got 2 worlds there, then you're talking about A and U. You're talking about both your waking and your dreaming are unreal. So that's going to probably alienate people, divorce them from the word. That's not what they want. They want you to know that in the beginning was the Word is with God, and the Word was God, that Jesus told the disciples in the Garden of Gethsemane, that you need to meditate upon these and you need to connect them. So if you're living just in your waking state with solid objects, you can see how the mind falls into the impure, desire-bound, sense-bound state. And it can actually build a habit of that. That's a teaching even for classes on Maya, specifically on Maya. It's very difficult to teach about Maya because that makes Maya seem real when you start talking about it. They would rather you just, say, well, I think I'll just remain distant from Maya and concentrate on Brahman. See, like something bad happens in a social group. Oh, let's talk about it. Let's have therapy about it. Well, that immediately brings all these things forward, and people are starting to talk, and they forget the whole reason for being there in the first place, their whole life, and their whole interactions. The whole reason for that is harmony, unity, bliss, peace, contentment, those things get tossed out the window for some little problem that happened. And that gets yacked and yacked about, you see, and torn apart and exacerbated. And then the way to basic sanity, what to speak of the way to Brahman, gets lost. And people are fighting, and wars start, all over these words that were of a very low level to begin with, that probably shouldn't have even been considered or mentioned or brought out, should have been left alone, and let just merge back into Maya from which they came. There's no way you can get into Maya and tell Maya to stop producing suffering. The First Noble Truth is there is suffering. And if a great soul like Buddha said that, then you probably ought to take it seriously and just leave it alone, you see. I think I'll concentrate on my innate bliss rather than on this ocean of suffering, which has no remedy. It has no remedy. It doesn't have any remedy because it's not real, for one thing. So you're getting into something that's not real, making it real, and then trying to find a solution for something that doesn't exist. But Brahman exists. In fact, Brahman is the only existence. So if you're concentrating on that, Maya goes away. Maya doesn't exist then. Only Brahman exists. So not only is it sensible, practical to take up this kind of tact for the mind, it's also an open doorway or the eternal path towards peace and freedom and contentment and higher wisdom. So they concentrate on that by saying that if you concentrate just on A, then you are the individual, you are the enjoyer, your locale is the physical universe, your mechanism you're using is the body senses. In other words, I am the body and senses. We were just talking about it last night at satsang. It's very hard for worldly people to think that we believe that we're spiritual. See, it's very hard for us to believe that they think they're the body. See, those two just can't mix. See, to think that you're a body that is born and decays and gets disease and dies and needs to go through all these things, to us it's just, well, why don't you just leave it alone? Vivekananda said that. The best thing about the body is just to leave it alone. The best thing about matter is to leave it alone. It just is, so let it be. And then you be spirit, you see. And then you don't really have to master matter or master Maya. It just will go on in those who prefer Maya over Brahman, or who prefer Mammon over God. And that's their business if they want to remain there, playing with unreal, unclean things. But your whole preoccupation is to focus on divine reality, which is your true nature. You can't do that in just a waking state. So you shift to the dreaming state, you see. So the you of Om all of a sudden becomes open to you. You start exploring your dreams. Maybe you even start meditating upon your dreams. I have several students right now who are writing me emails every day about things that are happening in their dreams. Swapna Siddha. It's a kind of perfection. It's a kind, even Patanjali, and Father of Yoga, used it. Swapna is one of the ways in which you meditate, you find your way to God, is through dreams. The dreams aren't considered real, as in other ways of proceeding, conventional ways of proceeding. They're trying to explore their dreams and make them blissful and make them replace their waking state and then live in their dreams as being happy. Well, that's called heaven, you see. And a lot of sorrow and suffering goes away, and now you have just happiness in heaven, you see. So heaven is in your dreams. The kings of heaven are within you was a direct state by Jesus to tell you where heaven was. It's within you. And what else is within you if not your dreams? Where else do you find existence in your sleep state, if not in your dreams? Because you're not going to find existence in deep sleep. That's a whole nother kettle of fish. You see, that's a whole nother thing we have to explore is deep sleep. That's the M of Om. But the A and U of Om, you see, you're inspecting these through each of its letters, right? The whole purpose of this, remember, is to connect them. not just to see them separately and then let them go. Your business is to connect those three states into the fourth. So your waking, dreaming, and deep sleep state are not you. They're locations your mind is visiting. And it should be able to visit them free of karma, free of harsh effects, free of delusion, and in knowing exactly where they are and what they consist of. So this is why he lays it out for you. This is Gaudapada's way of saying it. Great non-dualist. You are all of those. Your cause and effect was your condition. The result of everything in your waking state was pleasure and pain. And your view was a false perception of reality. If you only live in your waking state, they call that false perception of reality. Is that clear what the waking state consists of now? Its state, its condition, its locale, its mechanisms that it uses, its view, and its results are all right there for you. That's how the A of M gets described. The U of M then is a dream state. It's state 2. Remember, Ramana Maharshi said, this is dream number 2 and this is dream number 1. So both of these to him are dream. Whether you're here in the solid world, you're also dreaming this, and when you go into deep sleep, you take these things with you into a subtle state, you're dreaming that too, you see. It's all projection. So you're basically shifting between a rudimentary state of the mind and an intermediary state of the mind, or call it gross and subtle if you want. Study your Samkhya philosophy with the 24 cosmic principles put into 3 bodies. This is your gross body, this is your subtle body. In your gross body, you're waking, and in your subtle body, you're dreaming. It's that simple. And they're just filling in the gaps for you here so you know, according to what the Rishi wants you to meditate on, to realize Om, what these consist of. So you won't have any doubt. Oh yeah, I was an individual. Oh, actually, no, I wasn't an individual. Then I turned into an enjoyer, you see. I turned into a dreamer. And I was in an individual state was called Taijasa. And then my locale was a mental realm. So I shifted from a physical realm to a mental realm. See, so kings of heaven are in your mind. It's another way of saying that. They're within you, they're in your mind. You go to them every night, and you go to them after death. Hopefully you can go beyond them after death, realizing death to be just a transitional function. Your mechanism in dream is your mind. They put a double capper on that. Your condition is cause and effect. Notice how it was the same here. Cause and effect is going on whether you're dreaming or waking. The result of your dreams is deception. See, they're not real. They go away as quickly as anything. In fact, they go away quicker than your experiences in waking. Sometimes that's a blessing. But sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's very deceiving. But if you see through it all, then you'll know that you're being deceived by the veil of dream. And you're being deceived further by the veil of waking. The curtain of nescience, they call this, you see. Then your view is a skewed perception of reality. Here, you had a false perception of it. In other words, you thought reality was the body. You thought reality was the 5 elements. You thought reality was solid. You thought it was tactile. You thought it was comprehensible to the senses. Of course, if you take apart an object and see that it's atomic particles changing at a billionth of a second, you might rethink this, you see. Start to think different about how solid everything is here. That it's appearance, really, and that I'm being deceived by it. These are philosophical steps that should come from scientific understanding. One should lead to the other. There shouldn't be a schism between the two. And of course, a system like this, which is Advaitic, this is the Advaitist way of explaining your 4 states of your awareness, is the perfect way in which to get to this truth, free of most of the baggage of denominational problems and traditions and religions and so forth. So, in the remaining time, we just quickly look at the deep sleep and see what your state is there. So A-U-M, you understand, right? This is Sloka 7, Amritabindu Upanishad. Probably this is the Upanishad in which this 4 phases of the word and its 3 states there as combinations of letters and so forth, is actually being brought out for you to consider in a very simple way. So it's a Upanishad that's very important in that sense. So if you're in deep sleep then, and you've shifted from A to U to M brings everything to a close of the word Om, right? And so the lips come together, Om. See, tongue falls to the roof of the mouth, to the bottom of the mouth. Everything is brought to an end. Every word, every sound. That's Shiva's domain. This was Brahma's domain. This was Vishnu's domain, if you will. And this is Shiva's domain, A-U-M. And they're presiding deities over these things. So if you get to the third state, then you're in deep sleep. Your individual is called pragya. Guess what? Now you're not Vishva, an independent enjoyer, and you're not Taijasa, an enjoyer of things in dream. You're actually intelligence in deep sleep. You have become intelligence, so your consciousness is becoming formless. As it does in deep sleep. Your ego goes away, the worlds go away, all your problems go away, your money goes away, your family goes away, your ancestors go away because they were in heaven. So all of a sudden you are a formless entity. And the nature of formlessness is intelligence, as we found out here, right? And so in that sense then, you're going to be a knower. You should be a knower in deep sleep. If you've connected these three matras, the knowledge that will accumulate of that will be I am Brahman, which is the next sloka. We'll get to that after the break. Let's just quickly finish this. The locale you're in is a causal realm. That's here, you see. You've gone to a formless, undifferentiated state, undifferentiated unity. And so you've shifted to the third phase of the word. Your mechanism is intelligence, as I just said. The condition is subtle cause, whereas here it was, of course, cause and effect. So now effect is gone, and now you're just the subtle cause of everything. You need to come to know that. The result of this is veiled bliss, not enjoyment or pleasure in heaven. It's a kind of bliss that's smacking of, or very much like Ananda, but it's not quite yet Ananda, unalloyed bliss. It's a veiled bliss that's there in deep sleep. That's why everyone comes back from it feeling very good after they have deep sleep. Even the unillumined people come back feeling that bliss for a while. The view there is non-comprehension of reality. So whereas in deep sleep you had a false perception, here you have a skewed perception. In deep sleep, you don't comprehend reality yet. So that's a problem, which is going to be solved by reaching Turiyananda, the fourth state. So here we're going to pause, and I want to say that don't worry, live streaming audience, if you see us go away, because we need to actually replete a card, a memory card, so that we can store all of this. So you'll see us go off air, I think, for some 15 minutes, and you'll see us come back on, which is unusual to the way we usually do things. You usually see a chart at the break, close up, but you'll see us actually disappear off the air. Don't panic if you're following this closely and want to know more about the word. But do stay with us, and you'll see us appear again in 15 minutes with a memory card all full of its data. So I hope you're full of the data of this great teaching. And we will see you then in 15 or 20 minutes when you rejoin us, and we rejoin you. And thank you for your kind attentions. Om.